After a hyper-competitive group stage, we've reached our top 4, and playoffs are about to get underway. In the opening matchup, M80 and 2Game will run it back after the two faced off to close groups. 2Game got off to an incredibly strong start to group play, upsetting Rita in dominant fashion and eking out a close 2-1 win against TSM. However, they had slumped a bit in their last 3 matches, losing against the 3 other teams who made playoffs.
I think we kinda got too hyped on the first 2 wins, but now we calm it down, we thought about the mistakes that we did, and we are fine now.
M80 finished a perfect 5-0, but it definitely wasn't easy, and the team still isn't satisfied.
And we are not pleased necessarily for the result. Obviously, it's like we are the only number 1 clear seed. There are still a lot of work to do, but I think we can be proud of achieving that goal, but everything goes out now because the playoff actually matters the most.
However, an M80 playing with total confidence and comfortability is a scary sight to see for any opponent, especially if the individuals start to play at their peaks. In the other opening matchup, it's All Knights and Glories. All Knights have been one of the most exciting teams to watch at Ascension, as Dante Deos has proven to be one of the most explosive entry players in the world. In addition to this, they've shown time and time again, be it through grueling overtimes or their amazing comeback against 2Game, that they have the mental fortitude for a deep run.
I'm a psychologist, so it helps a lot. I just need the 5 minutes that they allow me to talk to the players in between games. And in fact, that was what won us the game against TSM, that we won the second map. It was the 5-minute conversation, yeah.
Glories, though, have shown that same ability to bounce back.
Yeah, I think that 1 day of break was really important for us to get back. I mean, after that, we still lost to M80, but it was a really close game and showed us okay, we still can do this. And after we learned that if we won the last 2 matches, we could potentially qualify, we were completely motivated.
Their playoff hopes looked bleak after starting the group stage 0-3, with 6 of 8 of their maps played being decided by just 2 rounds. They finished strong though, with 2-0 wins in their head-to-head matchups with 2Game and Rita, which helped them secure a playoff spot. Of course, all of these teams have faced off before, so it will be interesting to see how, if at all, their past matchups come into play. No matter what though, if the group stage was any indication, we'll be treated to some of the most exciting VALORANT the Americas region has to offer.
Well, it all started with 6 teams, now down to 4, and at the end of it, only 1 will remain to be ascending up to VCT Americas. Welcome, everyone, to VCT Ascension Americas. The action so far has been incredible. The group stage, so close. And now we have the playoffs ahead of us, and I cannot wait to get started. My name's Sierra Dawn. I'll be your host for the rest of the playoffs, and joining me on the desk, I have none other than Gomps and Lemon Kiwi. Exciting stuff ahead of us, guys. Our group stage, Gompers, it was electrifying. These matches, some of them down to the wire. And the playoffs, if it's anything like the group stage, should be awesome.
I think it's going to be great. We've gotten a little taste of how these teams kind of do coincide a little bit, and the fact that some of these teams actually are on the verge of eliminating the top teams. Glorious, like we saw in the interview, kind of almost taking a game off of M80. Moments like those that really make Ascension so exhilarating.
It really is. And Jen, talking about the group stage and the teams that made their way through, it could not have been closer. When going into this, we kind of knew that M80 were kind of the favorites, not just because, NA based here, but even just looking at the skill. But seeing what everyone was able to bring to the table, these records, I do not think reflect whatsoever how these games went down.
Yeah, there was no clear weak link. We did have to say goodbye to TSM and Rita, but every region still has a team fighting. And you still got to commend the effort of TSM and Rita. TSM actually won more maps, and if not as many maps as everyone but M80, but couldn't close out those game 3, so we have to say goodbye to TSM. And Rita had the same record as 2G, who made it into playoffs, but lost on round win differential, which just tells you how high the stakes are and also how tight the competition is.
And even when I look at these 2-3s, we had so many overtimes. We had so many games that were just closed out on a dime. This was There are so many ways this could have gone. But now we have to start talking about the 4 teams that are going to be moving on through the playoffs and the bracket and stuff that we have ahead of us here. Because now that we're down to 4, we still have to whittle down to just 1 remaining. It is going to be double elim, and starting in this upper bracket, we're going to be kicking off with M80 going up against 2G. On the other end of things, Gomps AK versus Galores.
I think this is what I'm really hyped for, because for both of the games that we have going up in the upper bracket area, I feel like for both of these, for every single team on this right now, they are the top spot. For 2G, AK Galores, they've all had a fair share and a fair chance at beating, the favorite team of M80, and then at the same time, teams that honestly just really broke records, I feel like, throughout this whole entire series and just Ascension in general. So I'm not even sure how this is going to go.
And I mean, you got NA versus Brazil's 2nd seed, and then LATAM's 2nd seed versus Brazil's 1st seed. It all wraps up this week, so it's crunch time. There's not going to be time to prep, review, and practice in between matches. So it's really all on the table to see what these teams can accomplish and how they're going to handle this pressure.
Especially, too, with a couple of teams maybe showing a little bit of a different side, or someone having a bad day. There's no more forgiveness from here on out. Your group stage was your opportunity to get comfortable playing here, but now we have to see every team at their peak. And before we get into the matches for today, we have to talk about how we think they're going to be going down. There's someone in chat that's like, NA bias. And look, I love 2 game. Being able to see this Spike and Silex combo is so great. But I mean, Gomps, I cannot bet against M80 at this point. Not with what they've shown us.
I can't either. They've been the team that, sometimes, they do lose out on certain maps throughout Ascension. We've seen them in not so great games and really great games and really, really close best of 3s, right? I feel like that's typically the situation with M80. We're always going overtime, but they are so good at closing it off, and no matter the situation, they are always the winners. It's because of their resolve, it's because of their technicality, it's because mechanics, everything is perfect for this team, and I genuinely believe, you'll probably see me pick M80 100% of the time here.
I feel like it's kind of hard to bet against them. I mean, when the team's going undefeated in group stage, we've gotten to see them at the top of NA Challengers. It kind of makes a lot of sense, but they definitely have competition ahead of them. And before we get quite into that, we do have a little matchup video ahead of the match.
Feeling good. The team's feeling good. Of course, the matches are tight, like you said, but a win's a win. At the end of the day, we always say that after every win, no matter how close the maps are. If we lose a map in the series, we did have to adapt on the fly. Obviously, we didn't have any down days of working on what needs to be worked on, and just you have to really think about what to do on the fly, and that's what we do really well. And I think that has to do with why we went undefeated in the group stage. We've already played 2G once, and actually it was our last game of the group stage. I wouldn't say they do anything out of the ordinary. I feel like their playstyle is something we're already kind of used to, and I think we just have to make sure we're playing our game and focus on ourselves and play the way we know how we play, and I think if we do that, we can win again. Overall, the teams are really talented. I think we came into this tournament not expecting how good these teams are going to be, and I think they all kind of surprised us. They play a little bit differently from ordinary franchise teams, and I think we play differently in a different style where we will pull out Euros in different comps, and I think we have a variety of ways to play the game in comparison to them, and I think that will give us the upper hand in every single series leading into playoffs. Good luck, have fun. It's going to be a fun one. Nothing off the top of my head, honestly.
Nosso objetivo sempre vai ser ganhar o Ascension. Foi difícil o percurso até aqui, tanto a classificação para o Ascension quanto para os playoffs. Mas acho que isso mostra que a gente tem que se preparar mais e com certeza a gente vai chegar mais preparado para essa nova etapa. Sim, com certeza. Eu acho que é um time muito forte e a gente não pode dar nenhum vacilo, então a gente tem que vir o máximo preparado possível para ganhar deles. Já falei com eles no hotel, a gente fez uma festa lá no hotel quando eles chegaram. Agradecer. É difícil depender do resultado dos outros para poder classificar, óbvio, mas fiquei feliz com a classificação deles e óbvio com a nossa também. O trabalho é sempre o mesmo, desde o começo do campeonato lá no VCB mesmo. Eu acho que a gente É um clima muito de amizade, somos muito amigos, então a gente sempre busca o bem-estar de todo mundo dentro da equipe. Individualmente, o meu trabalho é sempre estudar as outras equipes, estudar a nossa também, ver os nossos pontos fortes, nossos pontos fracos, maximizar os nossos pontos fortes para que a gente chegue bem no campeonato. O Xander é um ótimo IGL, ele está provando isso pelos resultados que a M80 vem trazendo. Individualmente também é um player com muita mira, é um controlador, está fazendo um controlador bom também. Então, acho que ele está se provando e é isso. Muito bom.
I always love getting the opportunity to hear from the players ahead of the match. And now to hear from us and these teams. First, we got to talk about M80. I mean, there's a reason, too, that a lot of people are talking about M80 going into Ascension. They've been the talk of the town for the entire year. They really showed up in this group stage here, Jen, being able to op off, and they're only a couple of games away from closing out what they came so close to last year.
Yeah, NA's last hope, but honestly, one of the best hope that we have. I really got to highlight Net's Sentinel. A lot of cohesion ever since on this roster has really come from him ever since he joined. He places his util in areas that don't get as much outward vision, but there's a lot of security because then you can't destroy it from intruders. And ever since Net came in, this is a very stable, cohesive team. And he helps Xander with calling, which Xander got a shout out in the video. So looking forward to seeing what Net can do today.
And having that Net and Xander combo, I think, has been really, really beneficial for the team. We got to see, especially near the end of Challengers, things really coming together. And I want to talk and highlight this tweet coming out from Qualanoob, talking about the team in general and M80. Talking about, yeah, this comeback potential should never be doubted. You know, a couple of emotes on the tweet because we're very passionate out here. And talking about firing on all cylinders in game communication. And when you are looking at Xander in this IGL, someone who has been getting this call out here, Jen, I mean, he's showing up, he has this game communication, and he has the stats to back it as well.
I just love the ducks. This guy really likes ducks, I can tell, but this is a testament to how truly scary this team is. Not the ducks, but what was said. Because Net also revealed he had food poisoning right before the last match, and they still had a strong 10-2 start, took a win. And what I love about this team is they are never satisfied. For them to be the best and to still reach higher and higher makes them one of the most inspirational teams to strive to be.
I think the mental part honestly really does show, I guess in general, just describes this team the best as well, right? When you're looking at the past match history in general for Ascension, some teams have had it a lot easier, but M80, they've been fighting for their lives, right? 16-14, 12-14, 13-9, 13-11, 14-12. Like, the OT game is strong. But I think that the biggest thing for this team going through from M80 is the fact that they hold on for dear life. And honestly, even on cam, there never is a moment where you feel like there is any worry. They're calm, they're collected, they're straight-faced, and they're ready to play.
And what I love is also Xander, who complements that IGL, or he is the IGL, but he complements Net's calming and very high impact fragger. You saw a bit of the stats just now, the main smokes player, and Sunset is his bread and butter, especially in that matchup against 2G previously, racking up at least like 14 assists a game. And even on slower maps like Icebox, Xander's Viper can take more of a passive role, but that just leaves room for the rest of his teammates to shine. And that's what makes M80 such a threatening team, and why they're undefeated is there is no star duelist. This is a galaxy of every individual on this team can pop off when they need to, and they trade that spotlight.
I mean, you're talking about that multiple overtime game over on Sunset against 2G, and we got to start talking about 2Game here because that was a really, really insane way to be ending off that match. And this is a team too, Gomps, that when they hit the server, I mean, the aggression and the firepower that they have here, this team has definitely come to play. And I'm curious with what form they're going to be hitting the field today. I don't think that their record is necessarily reflective of the skills they have.
I'd say, honestly, yeah, like 2Game, they've been impressive so far. They're very different from anything I feel like we've seen in terms of the players and the way they divide their responsibilities, right? Obviously, like double duelist, occasionally that we tend to see coming through from whether it be Silence or Spike. And I think that whole entire dynamic is so interesting to me.
And there's a good mix of experience on 2G. There's some where 2G is their first team, some that have years under their belt. And I look towards someone like Zap, who's their IGO, who's represented multiple banners, and he really brings that squad together on offense. If they can bring him to a map where Breach can really pop off, his Breach, I think, is huge for them. They can really excel with his IGLing. And he's also the oldest on the team, and he's not lacking at all in the mechanical department, in the composure department. Not to point that out, but it's important. He's 26 years old with a 17-year-old, a 20-year-old on the team, and 2G complement each other so well.
Making me feel old out here, that's for sure. But, I was talking about, then some of the crack Zoomers we have on the team, or even just some of the other members that we have on the team here. I want to start talking about some of this explosive firepower that we get to see, where some of this aggression on that attacking end comes from. And first, talk about Silings here. This is a tweet that we pulled up, talking about, playoffs, first international, and happy with individual performance. Yeah. He should be, frankly. I mean, the necklace says it all. He has been showing up in a variety of roles here. I think we've had a lot of praise for this team with this double duelist approach. With either of these duelists here, Jen, that's able to fall off and play another agent. And Silings has been showing up, especially in the last series they had up against M80, even if it did result in a loss.
Yeah, this is a team that is extremely confidence-driven, almost to a fault. They're used to dominating their side of the pond. And in both splits, they finished first in the regular season, but ultimately fall in third place in both split playoffs. So it's about closing out for them. And I remember watching an interview on broadcast from the last time they faced M80, and before they matched, when they would take these unexpected losses, when they got humbled, they said that they just run out of ideas. There's no mistakes. There's nothing wrong with them strategy, individually, execution. It's about ideas and how they can keep reinventing the wheel. So I'd like them to really stay focused and locked in and really respect M80. And I think you heard that in the video, how much talent there is on the other side. So confidence is one thing, but you don't want to let it get too much to your head,
Oh, 100%. I mean, if we're talking about that confidence, though, you definitely can't let it get to your head. But I think the confidence, too, has really been able to take this team far. And this is where I want to start talking about Spike. Because Spike in the last series, we got to see some of this aggression, especially on Lotus. And it was aggression that at some points just kind of caught M80 off guard. It was an aggression that they were able to start finding advantage here, Gomps. And I feel like with that two-prong approach of Silings and Spike, and regardless of whatever position they're in, it is definitely a combo that I would be looking to disrupt M80 with.
Yeah, I think for M80 too, I don't know, again, these teams have kind of battled it out, already. So in general terms, there's so many things that I felt like we could have fixed, for the side of 2Game, especially coming into this, I think M80 are just so strong that it does get a little bit intimidating. And a lot of teams I've seen, from time to time, first game goes super, super well, and it creates this fear kind of mongering feeling where how are we going to be able to really initiate that duelist of Spike or whatever to really allow this to come through. And I mean, I'm seeing here, especially on Lotus of being that first map, I loved everything that they were presenting to me. I could see, the defensive M80 that was super, super strong, and it tends to be that way throughout the whole entire series and every single game they've played. But then again, it's the deer and headlight situation where there were times where I felt like Spike wasn't having the game of his life, and he plays so much better than that.
And the fact that these two teams have faced in that last round of the group stage, and then this is their first matchup in playoffs. This is going to be a really interesting series, but I hope 2G really hit the books, because they got hit with a 10-2 half in favor of M80 on their best map. Lotus, 2G were undefeated during the split on this map, took their first loss to M80, and it wasn't pretty. And this was an M80 that had food poisoning, that didn't even feel like they played their best. So keys to victory for 2G, like Gomp said, yes, very much take advantage of the space that are given, be aggressive, but also be hyper vigilant when pushing that space. M80 gives you a sense of security by playing their defense so far back, but that's how 2G get randomly first blood, is they're not checking everything because they go in with so much confidence, but they really got to take their time and slow it down.
Especially too, the team has proven they can hit the server, they can shoot, man. They definitely have that firepower. But yeah, I agree that I'd like to see kind of that a little bit of, I don't know if restraint's the right word, but being able to kind of keep that confidence in check too and really be able to hit the books. There was an interview where they had talked about, yeah, they like to snowball and sometimes they run out of ideas, but I really like to see if they bring some new ideas into today's series, because the past couple of maps, I mean, even if that sunset was close, it wasn't enough to close it out. M80, I mean, they're so strong in being able to come back, and I mean, it is double elimination, so they're not absolutely cooked if they take a loss here, but you want to try and go through this upper bracket here, Gobs. I mean, you don't want to be messing around. We have a lot of strong teams here in our playoffs.
We do, and that's the thing. Now is not the time to make any mistakes, right? You're going up against already a very, very strong contender that has already taken you down. If you are 2-game in this particular moment, you understand the scenario that you're in. You understand you can be knocked down to the lower bracket, and it's not the time to make any severe mistakes with any maps that you pick. It's all technical from here, and I think that's going to be so fun to watch because anything is game. It doesn't matter the performance before. Spike didn't have the game of his life last game. But what about this one? What about this series? And that's the question.
And this is going to be about tempo and timing for 2G especially. How can you draw out M80 from those kind of back-end positions? How do you make them nervous? Can you obscure their vision, really make them scared, make them reveal their position? Because M80 used most of their util in the post plant. Now we're deciding on maps. And remember, it was, I think, Sunset and Lotus as the last maps in their matchup, and we're returning to Sunset again.
All right, and with it being 2G's pick, I mean, this was really, really close. There's a couple of rounds gone the other way. It's definitely really possible, but when we're talking about hitting the books and keeping things in check, Sunset, I think, is going to be the biggest indication if there is going to be any change. But Icebox for the second, I mean, considering it's an M80 pick, I'm not necessarily surprised by this gen. Lotus is strong, Icebox is stronger.
The Sunset pick is really interesting for M80 because they took this in overtime against 2G. And I was just talking about Zap from 2G of I think he really pops off on Sunset as the guy who really sets up the team to get into the site. I think 2G have a hard time dislodging M80's defense. You saw that really suffer on their first encounter on Lotus the last time they met. But Sunset was the second map. And for 2G to be resilient enough to kind of take it on the chin and come back is a testament to the confidence and how that even through the losses, they can still keep going.
I think it's really interesting too, actually, to see the 2G pick come through from Icebox, because this is an M80 map. I mean, we've seen like a typical composition that they go for, right? Gecko, KO, whatever. It's not something that really speaks out to you. But in terms of that, I would say, actually, was 2G the one that picked Sunset? Because I thought I said 2G.
It was 2G Sunset, M80 with the Icebox.
Okay.
If it's an Icebox, it has to be M80. It would be crazy to pick Icebox.
All right, then I might be like completely dyslexic because the way I read that was insane.
It's okay.
You know what? Scratch that. This is a banger map pick. Let's go Icebox. This is woo woo. Let's go M80.
I mean, what do we feel about the decider map in the series? Because when I am looking at the Sunset, it is the possibility of 2G being able to, I know it went in M80's favor last time, but I don't see 2G picking this up and not having some sort of change, some sort of confidence they'll be able to close this out. So I feel like this is one we can see that 3 maps, and with Haven as the decider here, Jen.
I don't think we're going to see Haven. I think this is going to go the distance, though. 2G are in this position because of how they can really stretch out the rounds, and it was off of round differential that they're here in the first place. I think based on 2G's mentality, they don't see themselves as making mistakes, but just think that shouldn't have even happened in the first place. And I think that just pushing M80 to the brink in overtime 16-14 on Sunset tells me that they can clean things up, and it's going to be different this time around, and they're comfortable. They know what to expect, and that's why they want to send it there. Icebox, I mean, that's one of M80's best maps, where I was highlighting Net being that sentinel that pops off. Not on this map. He may go back to the Viper, and this may be Nismo's KO that's going to propel M80 in the playmaking department.
I mean, since we know that it's now Sunset coming out as the first map, we can kind of just talk a little bit more about what we got to see. You're talking about Nismo, and when we look at Sunset, I know Nismo had tweeted out about, like, maybe not my best performances as of lately. And he was getting hyped up by Xander, Jonapi, like a couple of different people out here that know Nismo being like, no, you're crushing it, and like these assists. Well, Nismo was showing up in the kill department last time too, Gomps, when we got to see Sunset, and not the only one. Silence on the other side as the Cypher was really putting a hold down. So there was a couple of different pop-ups on players that are popping off. It's whether they can have that same form going into this map today.
I think, again, like on both sides, the defense was... It really allowed every single player to flourish, I feel. And like you said, Silence and Nismo being the top players on each side to be those players to really allow everybody else to play the game. And I think the biggest thing for me that I saw in this map is for I feel like 2Game to really take advantage of, that I really hope they do, is kind of what Lemon said. Like, yeah, M80, they do like to give you that false sense of security, and they want you to push up. But the problem is they feel like they're everywhere, right? With the addition of the Yoru coming through from M80, you know, the quick TPs that can happen from site to site, you never know the situation. So be aware, be vigilant, and don't allow them to bully you the way they did last time.
And this is going to come down to the two duelists, of course, where they've matched up both on Neon for Spike's side of things from 2G and Koala Noob on the Yoru. With 2G, they don't fall for those Yoru tricks, but it's how Spike can really enter, again, be aggressive, but remember to be hyper vigilant. That is the key to success here for 2G, is to not take up this real estate without really checking every corner and every possible spot M80 could be sitting in. Because M80 took so many first bloods on Lotus. I know it's a different map, and this could be a similar case for Sunset, because 2G just walk in and get caught off guard. So I need Spike to be fast, be awesome on the Neon, but also watch out for where M80 could be.
I love the call out of Spike, because we highlighted the importance of Spike, especially duo it up with Silence here at the beginning of things. And Spike, I mean, 17-25 last time on Sunset in a very, very close game on this Neon. We've gotten to see such explosive Neon gameplay throughout Ascension from a variety of teams, and Spike is definitely someone who stood out in that department. So even if it wasn't the bottom frag in the server, it was still a performance that I'd be looking at that as kind of maybe a little bit of an outlier, maybe not Spike's best. So that is a Spike that I'm imagining the crowd's cheering for him right now. But it is a Spike that I definitely expect that can step up on this Neon and try and push M80 around a little bit. We talked about the disrupting their early plans. Spike's the perfect person for that, Jen.
Yeah, I'm excited for this. And also just the initiator department. I feel like M80 operate around a lot more information utilizing the Gecko versus like a Breach Sova setup with 2G. I think Sova can sometimes be inconsistent because you throw the recon bolt out, it can be shot. Sometimes you get something, sometimes you don't. And M80 are coordinated enough that not all the players are going to shoot at the bolt and tell you at least a number count. So the Sova can be really hit or miss, but I think the Gecko for BCJ has been incredible. He dropped like 24 kills the last time he was on Sunset. But M80 operate around information, laying back and waiting for the first chess piece to be moved by 2G before they react.
I mean, when you're talking about BCJ and the Gecko and just the initiators in general, I mean, BCJ has been having a pretty good time out here. I even think back to a couple past series of him getting ISO ulted in a different series up against All Knights and being able to pop off. And BCJ has been showing up too. I think M80, there's been ups and downs for each of their members throughout that group state. Inconsistency that they've been looking to fix. And it's a M80 that if they fix that consistency, will be a team that should be able to make a very easy run of this bracket that's up ahead of them. So it's really going to be on these other teams, first off with 2G here, to how to punish that. Because I think that for an undefeated M80 here in our group stage and not even being at their peak, Jen, that's very dangerous.
Yeah, last time these two teams faced on Sunset, it was an 8-4 half. Again, this was the second map where M80 kind of knocked them out cold on Lotus with a 10-2 start. It's funny because M80 have said they actually are a team, and they joke about this internally, that they start off slow. But the fact that they started off that hot against 2G, I think really humbled 2G in a sense. So I hope this approach for 2G, now that it's playoffs, because this is where low-key 2G choke. They'll go number one in the split 1, split 2, and then they'll lose to teams that were below them in the regular season when it comes to playoffs. So we need 2G to lock in. They got the crowd behind them. There's a lot of hype. This is a confidence-driven team. 2G, they're a team that have made M80 sweat before in Sunset, and now because they chose this map, 2G believe they can win it.
there was a lot of suffering last time too, and you know, I think that honestly creates a bit of resolve and confidence going into the next game. Like, they know what they did wrong, they were very aware of it, and you know, feeling that sort of disappointment and kind of almost tasting victory against M80 with like a 16-14 makes you it really does make you feel like you have the capability to run through with it again. And of course, even here, like a 50-50 going in. Actually, JK trolled 94%.
Just give it a second.
Wow. That is crazy. Anyways, it's not like I voted for
Clarification,
M80.
is this for the first game or the entire series? Because if this is like the predictions just on Sunset, wow, man, wow.
Oh, it's getting worse.
Oh my gosh. I should not have said anything. I should have just waited.
We got a 97%. Can I get a 98? Can I get a 98? No, this is okay. If this is just talking about Sunset, I mean, this is stark. I definitely think that 2G, I mean, we're looking at the Sunset, I don't know. I feel like, yeah, we need to get some percentage back in their favor. I think that this is a team that, I mean, this combo, they have this potential. So that'll be huge. This is interesting. I know M80 are the favorites here, Jen, but wow, what a chat vote.
Yeah, and if M80 start on defense, I'm just double checking, that's gonna be really scary for 2G, because it's always M80 starting off with a very strong half, whether it was 10-2 on Lotus and then an 8-4 on Sunset the last time they faced. And you need 2G to find a way. Like I said, the keys to victory is to draw out M80, maybe even place smokes between them, really obscure M80's map control and make them nervous. But judging by M80's experience both in VALORANT and outside of this game, they are not a team that will be shook easily, and a lot of their focus is on retakes and post plants, and that's where the majority of M80's util will come out. So 2G, it's about bunkering down once they do have control and hopefully winning the duels. Man, obviously VALORANT is about mechanics, and 2G need to do a better job at dueling against M80 in those moments.
Yeah, last time on Lotus, I did see a lot of... I think the biggest thing that I really do want to see different on the side of TG that honestly could give them a little bit more leeway. 13-7, not too far off from what they were pushing for. They did manage to take a couple rounds back on the defense, but at that point, the defense from M80 was too strong, right? They were ending the half at honestly way too far off pace. And it really just pushed them away. Terrible economy actually started happening. Really fearful pushes that I got to see. I think Neon did push in with the high drive there coming through from Spike. And there were occasions where it didn't feel pressure. Like, there was no pressure coming through from a duelist, which is surprising to me. And again, just uplifting the duelist to really thrive in this moment, because, okay, Silence is top frag, and Silence is also, I guess, another player that this team can rely on, but we need a little bit more to allow Spike to flourish in these moments, because Spike is that win condition, I feel, especially like if Zap can help with the assists coming through, 19 assists, 17 assists from Prize, you know, like in total throughout the whole entire series. We just need a little bit more to push forward and create that pressure that we were lacking last time on the defense.
And M80 have said that in a previous interview that 2G, their playstyle is similar to a lot of other opponents they face. So I think even M80, obviously they've won the last matchup against 2G 2-0, but overall this is a playstyle that 2G still have to develop. And they've said that 2G have said they need to come up with more ideas, and that's hard to do on the fly. It's hard to do when playoffs take place all in 1 week, and the calling has to stand up. But Sunset is a great map to kind of set the tone on those playstyles where a lot of different duelists can come out. We're going to have a Neon versus Yoru matchup, most likely, if this is going to follow the same thing as last time. And judging by the Yoru pick, I mean, M80 are okay with taking their time with things. They don't need to explode onto the site with Jet, Raze, Neon, whatever. It's going to be Spike and 2G that can set the pace, the tempo of how fast they want to take the site. But most importantly, don't feel too confident, don't feel too secure, especially if you're facing North America's undefeated team.
It's definitely going to be a great match that we have up ahead of us, and I think that there is the possibility of a 3-map banger. I'm excited for it. But to get everybody just as hyped, if you're not already, we have a quick little hype video ahead of the match.
I think we just have to make sure we're playing our game and focus on ourselves and play the way we know how we play, and I think if we do that, we can win again.
Nosotros vamos a jugar como siempre, ya le ganamos, así que nosotros también tenemos que mejorar en estos días que quedan para jugar,
para ganarle nuevamente.
Bueno, ojo, se va adelante, me encanta. A ver, qué buena plan, por Dios. ¡Se da doble! ¡Escondete! ¡Suerte, se va! ¡No está feo! ¡Primeiro problema da pronto! ¡Agora pressiona na esquina! Se mata, se na conta!
A gente sabe que vai ser jogo difícil porque isso mostra que o nosso nível de região também ele é nível muito forte.
Queda el muchacho al fondo, es un temporal que está pasando, por favor ayuda, mata el tiburón, no puede explotar, se mata al signador, de aquí al fondo, la triple, uno para uno,
no, y eso puede ser demasiado importante. Suter que está haciendo utilidad, Urango que se abre, encuentra la vaca, Suter eso está y el cochito.
Nosso objetivo sempre vai ser ganhar o Ascension. Foi difícil o percurso até aqui, tanto a classificação para o Ascension quanto para os playoffs, e com certeza a gente chega mais preparado para essa nova etapa.
Para forzar la economía y, oye, una primera baja, una primera eliminación bastante buena. La segunda bien de Silence con la asa. Tiene que de quitarle toda la utilidad. De hecho, le saca la acechadora, no lo ven y nunca lo ven. Bueno para 3, bueno para 4.
They have worked so hard to get here. We're still on the stage. We still have to make sure they're ready for things, Jen, but whew.
Oh, it's gonna get intense. And I actually just remembered something that M80 said in their last interview, because it was something like, "What do you have a message for 2G?" And they said, "Yeah, stop smack talking. It only makes us better." And that's such like the the style of 2G, because they're a confidence-driven team. Like I said, almost to a fault. But that smack talk also gives the energy of 2G, because they know they're better, they think they're better, and they try to execute like they're better. And I like that a team can show up against a team like M80 and play without fear. But I think M80 like to also to shut up the doubters and shut up the haters, especially if it's on the other side.
You're talking about smack talk. Are you sure that's the exact verbiage used? Because I saw all those duck emojis on that.
Yeah, there's some duck emojis there.
There's a couple of ducks, but I mean, M80, I mean, they're ones to have that confidence and not fall back. But that's what I love about this going into this matchup, because when we're talking about the past things that are said, Silence talking about, like, they're not scared of anyone. And they're not, like, there's not really much to change about the team. Like, sometimes these mistakes happen. Sometimes they kind of run out of ideas, but they feel confident in what they got, what they can run going up against these opponents. And I think, too, that even if it is a confidence that maybe once you get into the server, we can see in a couple of rounds of it maybe being their downfall, I think it's also what's led them to get to this point here, Gomps, and being able to see that aggression and how they're able to push. I mean, they're talking about the mistakes. If you just have a couple of less mistakes going on today, then yeah, this could be a series that's completely flipped on its head, completely flipped the expectations in this outcome.
I think that's another thing too. Like we've been talking a bit about Galaris and I'm sorry, not Galaris. Whoa, where did I go? 2Game Esports. We've been talking a bit about them and things that they could fix here. And like what the previous gameplay was looking like, et cetera, et cetera. But just because they're trying to get better doesn't mean M80 isn't. And this team is a team that like is constantly keeping their heads down, keeping themselves humble. They're not a team that really is super loud or obnoxious. They're very, very humble. They kind of sit back and relax, but they also know that they are better. And I think that's what carries them so far as a team, is that there isn't any ego behind it.
And one person that I think 2G can take advantage of is Koala Noob. You live and die by the Koala Noob, especially on Sunset with his Yoru. He had 5 first kills, but 8 first deaths, almost as much as Spike. So it's going to be who can kind of spot that duelist off the rip, kind of explore the map, whether it's probably going to be on, now that we know that 2G is on offense first, it's Spike can be that liability, or that person that can completely blow open a site and give 2G that opportunity to at least get a plant down. It's the post plant that I'm most worried about when it comes to 2G's offense. But Koala Noob, I wonder how he's gonna kind of adjust and temper himself if he did get first blooded that many times. It did still lead to a win on Sunset, but maybe that's the weakness that 2G can take advantage of.
I mean, M80 have always been good for covering for someone who maybe is not on the day. But for M80, I'm looking for everyone to show up. For 2Game, I'm looking for these duelists to step up big. And for both teams, I'm looking for them to ready up and get into the queue. We're going to be taking a quick break as we get these teams settled and ready. And on the other end, we'll be going to Sunset.
Peace.
Well, hopefully our players are a little closer to getting ready. It's big stakes ahead of the matches, so we got to make sure everything is up to order. We're getting ready to see M80 go up against 2Game. The first round here of our playoffs. Losers not out, but they will have a much more difficult journey ahead. And Jen, these two teams played so recently. There's a lot to go off of for that. And I cannot wait to get started with today to see what adaptations each has made.
Yeah. Look, Neon's in the crowd too. Get in there. Spike needs
What?
you. Or maybe Spike's in the crowd. He's
oh my gosh,
when
that's
do I
so
play?
Good. And there's
we
got everyone there too. Do you not see the Cyber Hat next?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Sage. I see Sage. Yeah. Do you see Sage? And all the way in the left? Sitting down.
Oh, sitting down. I say KJ, Neon, Cypher. Is that maybe Yoru next to the Cypher? And then a Viper? I don't know.
I wish that we were there to like just the camps to be able to see these like as sick like cosplays and stuff. This is absolutely awesome. But we're gonna distract her from the match. It'd be awesome if they went up and played at some point on the stage. But we got to talk about the M80 and the 2Game of it too. We reiterated and talked a lot about the series ahead of us, each one of these individual players. But to refresh, Jen, win cons, what we're looking at heading into this.
So since M80 are on defense first, at least the last time they played very far back. They're so okay with giving up the site and letting the opponent plant. It's the retakes from M80, and that's where they dump all of their util. 2G, they're going to be given a lot of map control, and it's what they do with it that's going to matter. You don't want to be overconfident, feel too much of a sense of security. You still need to be hyper vigilant and try to get some first bloods going. 2G really suffered with that in the last couple of matchups. So I think if they can catch Koala Noob, who's usually the one getting the most amount of first deaths, as that duelist. But it's a clash of styles, right? You got Spike on the Neon, you got Koala Noob on the Yoru, and it's the pace that's going to be set off the rip. M80 have said that they're a slower team off the rip, but then they kind of smacked 2G around at the start of the last series. So 2G picked this first map that we're going into, so I'm sure with the crowd and how hype it is, they're confident going in.
Talking about M80, a little slow to warm up into a series, but being able to close out a series strong. That's where I'm looking too at the potential of getting a 3-map series within this. I think it's undisputed that M80 are the favorites going into this match, but it was so close between these two on Sunset last time around. And if M80 don't come out of the gate absolutely firing all cylinders, which as we've seen in the past comps isn't necessarily the most common thing for them, 2Game had the chance here, I think, on Sunset. It was already really close. There was a couple of difficulties last time. Even if everyone's kind of voting in the one direction at M80, I mean, I think that 2G have a really strong possibility on this first map. I don't think this is maybe as tight as... This isn't necessarily as far a part of a series as maybe it's talked about, what it kind of seems.
Yeah, it wasn't last time either. Like, it was incredibly close. Again, the defense is really where it lies. Like, can they take it back relatively more than they did before? And the reason why they couldn't, again, is just they weren't grabbing hold of the situation at hand, right? They knew that, there were certain players on the team that probably weren't performing the best, and they could have maybe even used different tactics to try to catch M80 by surprise. Again, M80 very, very strong on the defense by constantly keeping themselves held back and not having to worry too much about what they were doing.
Walkout. It's walkout time.
It is time for our players to hit the stage and start getting started with the match up ahead of here. This is the playoffs. We started with 6 teams, 4 remain, and at the end of all of it, only 1 will ascend. We've talked about how close it has been with these teams throughout everything, Jen, and I honestly, with how everything else went in the group stage, as much as we set the stakes, anything could realistically happen.
Yeah, I know I said that. I don't think we're going to Haven as a decider, but I don't know. It's getting really intense out there, and I think our players are warmed up, ready to go soon. And 2G picked right. They went into overtime and lost on Sunset to M80, but Sunset, I know it's hard to find a fault in M80 with, the whole undefeated thing, but they only dropped, 3 games, 3 maps, and Sunset was 2 of them, to TSM and to Galoris. So, yes, the series goes quite the distance. or the rounds go quite the distance for M80 on Sunset if they do lose, but this could be a pain point for M80. And now that a lot of their strat book has been out there because, you know, the whole 16-14 overtime against 2G, I think 2G can just play counter, but that they really have enough time to do that since the last time they matched up was only, what, like a week ago or something? Mm-hmm. So I wonder really how much prep 2G did for this map specifically.
I mean, when I look at M80, their strat book and what they've had, like, there's a lot of tape on these teams for these couple of, say, maps that they like to go to, but at the same time, they're still able to come out on top. And even at different forms that we've seen coming out here in the group stage from what we've seen from Challengers, they will adapt. They've been working hard. They definitely have this opportunity here, Gomps.
Opportunity is there. Like, you know, and even if it was a couple days before, if you're serious about playoffs and making it to Americas, you're going to be serious about the time you're putting into the game for sure. And that's that. I mean, just putting in the effort here.
The crowd, so hyped to see how this is going to be going down. Getting started with our first match of our playoffs. M80 going up against 2Game Esports, just facing off a couple of days ago, where M80 were able to take this 2-0 win, but coming down to multiple overtime rounds. 2Game, they have this opportunity. They have the chance. Let's hear the walkout.
Denle la bienvenida a los campeones de Norteamérica. Estos tipos, nadie los sienta. Una vez más para M80.
It's just another day at the office for M80. They are undefeated, only dropping 3 games, but that first map of Sunset was 2 of their losses. Not to 2G, though, and this is a rematch that they did at the last week of groups. Really excited to see how 2G look coming out here, Sierra.
100%, but gotta bring out 2Game, bring them out to the stage. This was the number 2 seed. Coming from Brazil. And look at the confidence, the smiles. This is a team. There is this upset potential. I think it's one that when we're looking at M80 favorites aside, they have the confidence. They have the mechanics and the strength. Do they have enough in the tank to take it to 3 maps or even the series?
Dude, it's crazy too because they come in with smiles, but you can actually see them take a deep breath. Like, they are putting on a front. They are nervous. They're excited. They're overwhelmed. There's like a mixture of emotions here, but like you can tell in their faces, like, yes, okay, they're nervous about the game, but they are ready and they're prepared.
And there's a mix of experiences. Like I mentioned this before, there's 25, 26-year-olds, there's 20-year-olds, there's 17-year-olds. 2G have a wealth of experience, one that can motivate each other, carry each other through the highs and the lows. And I think they got a very good, favorable map set. So I'm excited to see how 2G will try to rewrite this story against North America's greatest.
And when we have to talk about the Blacklight Agent Select, we know very recently what these teams wanted to go towards. So Gompers, seeing Koala Noob on this Euro, Spike on this Neon, my eyes are to Spike and kind of this redemption to be kicking things off right for Sunset.
I think redemption is honestly key, and redemption will happen. They've learned from their mistakes before. They finally got a taste of what M80 is like, and they can work off that. They know Koala Noob's honestly pretty territorial when it comes to the Yoru. They understand nets and the play style that they like to push forward there on the defense, so they know what they need to do to get the rounds on the defense, because they don't struggle as much when they're on the defense themselves. For 2Game, this is the time to make the change.
And I want to see a turnaround from Net as well. This was one of the poorer maps out of him, dropping 6 and 19. And very uncharacteristic, but it's kind of, it bodes well for Sunset when Net's going to be solo holding the site. And if he can just be bulldozed over by 2G, that's how they can 2G can get themselves on the right foot. Now, someone to watch out for is Nismo. Dropped 31 kills on Sunset last time, and he is terrifying. How will 2G handle this? We'll find out.
We definitely will. 2G, they have to be coming out of the gate strong here for a chance in this series. Do they have what it takes? Have they learned from playing it very recently? We'll have to find out and head over to Shift and Uber for Sunset.
Thank you very much, Desk. Yes, the time has finally come to kick off this upper semi-final. The wait, I'm sure, folks, is going to be worth it. I'm Uber here in the booth with I Hold Shift for a rematch. The bookend to the group stages here is M80 once more take on 2Game.
Yeah, and I think the thing about it was this 2Game squad came out really firing on all cylinders at the beginning of the group stage, and I would say lucky for them because they found themselves a part of that major tiebreaker situation, and they etched themselves into the playoffs, but with a rematch versus, of course, the #1 seed coming out of groups. The interesting thing about this is the immediate run back here on Sunset. It definitely felt like a game that was winnable for both sides, 8-4 halves on both sides, until we eventually got to OT where M80 were just able to figure things out kind of as we got to triple overtime. The interesting thing about it, and the desk hit upon this a couple of different times, Spike needs to show up today. Last time around, especially on the offense, Spike was just a non-factor, only going 5 and 14 when they were on the offensive round. So when you look at 2Game, you look at the Neon, that's the power pick, that's the flex. You got to find a way to get some value out of that opening initiation.
I think that the draft here of maps is an interesting factor because 2Game, there are 2 maps that cause them problems against M80. Those are Haven and Lotus. Last time around, they banned Haven, and they had to face M80's Lotus, which did not go well at all. Only 2 attack side rounds. The Sunset map is absolutely the most even. I think between these 2 map pools, this is going to be our most interesting matchup. Both teams did good, like 8 defensive rounds last time they played it, but after this map shift, that's where things get concerning. M80 have a deep map pool, and basically, no matter what the draft looks like here, they're banning Abyss, so you know they're very, very happy with the conventional maps that remain.
Yeah, especially when Icebox is on the table. I mean, there is no better team when it comes to having a bread and butter map mode than seeing M80 play on Icebox. They have been dominant on both sides of the spike. They have a 92% win rate dating back to the beginning of the Challenger season. So it definitely feels like to kick things off, it's immediately into the pressure cooker for 2G, having to find a bounce back and a revamp on this map, their selection, because this would have to go 3 in a lot of people's minds if 2G were to win this series.
M80 looking for a robust defense side to get a good start to this map. 8 rounds, I'd say, is what they're looking at, much like last time. And Spike has already made his way into mid, clearing some of that Cypher util as they go. So now that part of the map is dark as far as M80 concerned. And they're trending back to top mid just to see if there's going to be a push-up.
And I like this already. It's early to kind of say this for certain, but I like this idea for 2G. Show pressure somewhere first instead of just diving when the barriers drop. That's what they did last time, and Spike did not have a good time. So now you've got a little bit of split focus on the pistol round where M80 need to find out where this hit is, and Xander's going to retreat back into the depths of the site while the rest of the team comes over through tiles.
Time is of the essence. Xander smokes himself to get back towards
really good.
The smoke in link. Nismo, decent time to come out with a fault line here. And the aftershock could have been an issue, but Zap just sprays down through the cyber cage ostensibly and is able to find one. The reinforcements are on their way for M80, and you'll see them wrap between short and elbow. And Xander just has to stay alive. Big paranoia, but 2G are close enough to still be able to see him. The reinforcements are here, though. Net already finds 2, and that's all he'll have. 2G swarm this A side and have the numbers.
I freaking love this from 2G. The 2 things that they really struggle on offensively versus M80 earlier this last weekend was creating pressure across the map, forcing this M80 squad to flex their defense in a more curious way. You deny information at mid by taking care of the spy cam. That already puts that into play. The second thing they struggled with was finding good isolation on the site. It was largely just, here's a fault line, Spike, just go run through that. This time they control the space at the back of the site. They get elbow, they get that front mid connector, and then beyond that, they scale deeper. That is something that did not do well versus M80, and so far it's already looking like a very cognitive effort in this reprise map.
2G already looking to push up on another extremity. This time, though, it is that B side, one which M80 have stacked. 4 players set up here for M80 with Koala Noob in the position. Notice there's no gate crash set up here, so M80 are effectively committed to this Cypher cam again towards top mid, but 2G have made no efforts to take control of that part of the map. It's going to be two cameras staring each other down. And 2G are waiting on a timing here. They're not going to get anything for free out of M80. They're going to have to make the move.
Yeah, and I think this is one of those things that, again, you just have to kind of tilt towards leaning on the direction of 2G, making the right adjustments. You know, let there be a long lurk first, especially with a weapon advantage. At worst, you lose a ghost here. So Silence is going to make the call that I've got full elbow control. I haven't seen anything, no smokes, no Gecko utility, nothing of the nature. So come join me. Let's get ourselves a full setup, and this should be an easy post-plant hold, considering they haven't used any utility at all until that dark cover and recon bolt combo comes out.
And that's all Silence walking up.
Yep.
Through halls. We're ready to take contact. Left. He was a ghost player, so very expendable as far as 2G are concerned in this round. He finds stone cold nothing. So now M80 in the awkward and unenviable position of having to rotate into this site with weaker weaponry. Still plenty of their own utility to work with. Obviously, they got some flashes here between the Gecko and the Yoru. About time these two come to lodging their tears. Two flashes being expended. Spikes get ahead of them now. Slide in to the fault line and it's caught out. That's at least one for M80, but it'll be tough to find any more here. Net decides to swing that one way and it's clapped.
Yeah, just keep a note on that. I mean, flat out, what we're seeing now 2 straight rounds in a row for 2G is that they're being passive and a little bit calculated about how they want to execute on the site. And then on top of that, they're not allowing M80 to stage their retake attack, which was a huge issue. The Des did it appropriately. M80 are fine not spending any defensive utility until they're playing retake. But 2G aren't spending anything at the beginning anymore. So now they get a free site. They send the utility out as soon as they establish that M80 are about to hit their retake. And then Spike, instead of getting aggressive early, is getting aggressive post-plant. That's something that, if it holds true in full gun rounds, could be very successful for 2Game in being able to respond to what they faced up against M80 last time around.
Sunset is not such a big map that M80 have to give up large amounts of it to try and give themselves edges elsewhere. So don't expect to see that stack layout happen from here on out. We've even got the gate crash thrown back towards spawn by Koala Nude to give him a somewhat faster rotate off the site. Not necessarily to another, though. It's mid being taken up here by 2G.
And I love it. Again, this is not something we saw last time these two teams played. 2G was just hitting the outsides of the map offensively. Now you've got a fast lane to separate over the middle, and this is going to cause a ton of issues. Good paranoia to counter, but this leaves B main wide open, plus Market still in control for 2Game. They can still do this 4v5.
Xander has a sixth sense about it there. LZ able to duck those shots, but now he's going to be on the corner, and he gets so good. Xander swings back into the smoke. Then he's going to be waiting inside Market, sees a gun barrel, and deals with the assailant. Zero theft already up here for Net, thanks to his brace of kills in that first round, and following it up after the fact. We are in the post plant now with all of M80, all of them committed to Boba. They've got to get a way out. Busy does its job. Nismo's at least able to get the kill off of that, but now we have a 2 versus 2. And Blazy gets swung on. The Bulldog is actually able to get the job done, and this leaves it up to Nismo. He just got his fault line back online, but suffers one from Zap. And that means this is a tall order indeed. There's a flash available, but the timing's not there. Zap needs to play the post plant to perfection. Flash pushes Nismo off the spike.
Hold on.
Couple seconds left, and I think Zap has got this. There's not a thing Nismo can do except take the kill and walk away.
That's 3 straight rounds of 2Game getting aggressive on the offense and zoning out M80 from getting their setup. I love it. Even though you do have a moment where Spike, I don't want to say he overheats, but he definitely ego chows the backside of halls here. The thing about it is, even though he doesn't necessarily get the elimination, it staves off M80's setup, and then you all of a sudden have Luis who's just holding on to Market safely behind a dark cover. It's really good delineation of space, something that, again, was not present a couple of days ago when these two teams had played this map. So, again, that focus for 2G, after looking through the VOD, seems to be pretty clear-cut. Get deep, do not allow M80 to flood us or hit from multiple points of ingress on their retake. Let's put the pressure on them early, and now all of a sudden you got back onto a limited buy situation for M80's defense, and they're trying to get aggressive. It does work for at least a 1-for-1 opening, though.
Weaponry a little bit dodgy, though, here for M80. So they're happy to take that kill inside B main. This mine has not yet moved in to recover it. It might have been picked up by 2G instead. They are well equipped for this. Koala Noob can get off the site in a pinch as long as that gate crash is available. He's going to have to hear this walk up through halls because it's not particularly subtle, not particularly quiet. And then he gets slapped down to 4 HP. Has the ZP across and, in fact, takes the commitment angle here to play a double face with Nismo through this one way. Flash for Koala Noob. Not enough.
It's a good idea. I think that's something that M80 are going to have to look at and say, this is how we play this, is we have to be more contest heavy on site itself. We can't just default for playing for retake. So yes, we're just in a limited buy situation, but I think the idea of M80 keeping themselves on site, giving a little bit of forward pressure, allows a little bit of an opportunity here for this 2v2, but unfortunately, again, the rifle's just too strong. High-low setup off of the crouch is perfect in 2-game. Looking clean so far on this offense. Already way better than what we saw a couple days ago.
And again, it's a trade of players on that aggressive pop towards the B side, their shift, where they go 1-for-1, but then they overwhelm a site that is just Koala Noob. And Xander taking so much damage there just on the swing out of holes puts him way behind.
No, it's really good. And okay, this is going to be an important round to keep our eye on here, because my guess would be that M80 are going to try to use this Yoru to challenge one of the outsides of the map, likely over towards A before they go over towards B. But if they can get aggressive and control A main, that may allow them a chance to stack up. Thing about it is, you just never know when 2Game's going to hit the trigger and just go. Hit the green light and just hit one of these sites aggressively. So this has to be calculated for M80, and you can kind of see that already occurring. A little bit of aggression towards A main while the B site plays more passive. Spy Camp does tag out Xander, but that's not enough to really influence the defense to move one way or the other, at least not as of yet.
There's no one way over towards A long here. This allows Koala Noob to creep up with the operator and, of course, the contingency. I was going to say of the gate crash that has just expired. Koala Noob, as a result, corrects his positioning a little bit and backs up.
Yeah. He's got the fault line bailout from Nismo as well, who's probably just holding that for the moment. But as the gate crash comes up, there's the Al drones to get the scout. Fault line will come through. No counter initially as another flash moves out, and that'll just respond to an easy teleport back. And the focus the whole time is still stayed over towards B, where Xander's in a little bit of trouble here.
2G are committed, though. They've got to go on towards the B side, and it actually falls here. Xander tries to smoke towards B lobby, but it's not enough to stop this momentum, and 2G will not be slowed. Now for M80, they've still got some pressure here over on the A side. Zap has made his way through.
Yeah,
this could be very disruptive.
You need to hit the shot if you're Koala Noob, and that is the end of the round. I'm loving it, man. Again, it just feels like a totally different team from what 2Game was doing from a couple of days ago. I'll stop saying that same phrase over and over again, I promise you that. But look at where all the blue X's are. They're deep on site. Last time we had played this map, it was Spike just trying to slide out when the barriers dropped and hope he could go 1-for-1. That wasn't working. He went 4-for-14 in offensive rounds. Now all of a sudden, he's at least playing a bait and switch with his teammates where he can dive, kill the focus, have a teammate follow up to find a couple of eliminations backside of the site. It's been really, really well done by 2G, and I would figure after this round, we're going to get a timeout for M80 to talk over what they're going to do to put a stall to this more passive yet calculated approach for 2Game, because they need to either decide if we need to give up the site completely and just hold some of these corners over towards market, back halls, or at A main or A deep and towards the backside of the defensive spawn, give us 2 points of ingress on our retake, or we need to commit to playing more aggressively and contest the spike from being dropped in the first place. But this idea of we're going to sit back and then 5-man retake from one direction is not going to benefit M80, and there's the timeout to talk about it.
So far, 2G have been perfect. I mean, they make these little probes towards B main, sure, but they really involve any kills. They did in that previous round. It's a standard setup for M82. It's the Omen over towards that B side. Sometimes there's one weighing A, but this time it would be with the Cypher. And then you have the Breach, the Gecko, the Yoru set up at A. And in fact, 2G really attack the entire map.
Yes, they do.
Mid out of their calculations. So it's very, very hard for M80 to know where to be positioned. And the fact that Zap is like a loose end, is pushed up into A, he takes 2 guns, I think, on the round. And M80 already in financial crisis mode.
Yeah, they're in the back and forth between save buy, which is not where you want to be. And now we're going to get our answer here. Maybe not necessarily in this round because, like you said, the finances aren't great. But the next full gun round, we're going to get the idea in terms of what is M80 going to do. Are they going to choose to play more aggressive when the barriers drop, try to get this Yoru maybe more involved, not necessarily just rocking the operator, but maybe play a little bit of a 2-man game to find some sort of a trap play? Or are they going to back off a little bit more and just make sure they keep good focus to the middle of the map, like over towards market, over towards the front side at A? Make sure you've got some early aggression. This time it's a Dizzy to get aggressive. And how about this? Koala Noob trying to force something. Again, it's just a save round, but it's not going to work out, even though the flashes were decent to try to get one for free.
Who do you not just contact in the extremities here? That's the problem. That's why Koalanu got forced off of A with the operator last round. They are clearing these close angles with so much of this util. And still Zen is able to get the drop on them. Two with the classic. Silence looks to rejoin with Pricey here. And a Rolling Thunder opens things up. There's no escape for LZ. Pricey at least is able to find one. Stunned up and Nismo can finish the job. Yep, Ultimate getting the job done here. And Silence will be brought down. A dirty Thrifty for M80 gets them into the game.
Are those right-click classics or Buckies? That was 3 different single-tap right-clicks for a kill. Ah, wow. That is injecting life into the M80 side. And that's not part of the game plan, by the way, and what they talked about for the timeout, at least not fully. That is just simply put, you throw the blind side, you try to gate crash into main. That doesn't work. But a couple of right clicks just hit them all in the face. I mean, that's 2 eyes and a mouth for those right clicks coming through. And that's enough to at least turn the tides and get that early contest. So now we're going to find out. This is the important round in this half. Are we going to get the same thing from M80 with full weapons? Are we going to try to flash them out, use the Dizzy to create space, force a 1v1 in these main locations, whether it be a B or A? Or are we going to try to get the operator back into play? Are we going to play for initial contact and then back off, but not too much to a point where we're forced to have to 5-man flood through one direction? Are we still going to be able to contest some of the inner angles through middle? Again, talking about things like market, talking about things like A main over towards A mid, over on the A side of the map. That's the real question here. But if there was ever an argument to be made about that last round for why you should buy a Send bottle, I think we just got it. Those right clicks were nasty.
It's a great endorsement for it, no doubt about it. The problem for M80 is that they don't have Rolling Thunder every round. That was obviously a huge part of what allows them to stagger, 2G as they try and hit that B side. They tried an operator at the extremities. We saw Koalanu go towards A long. He was forced off by an Al drone first and then a fault line. He just eventually gave up and pulled out with a gate crash.
Elbow, yeah.
Can he play up inside B main? That's also being cleared with an early fault line. So both extremities are being controlled by 2Game basically every single round. They're willing to expend some util against that because they know that M80 are trying to counter their contact walking up A long, or into lobby.
Yeah, and I think that's one of those situations, like, if you're looking at that from the perspective of Koalanu, I think he's fine getting pushed off the angle. He's just hoping he can get some early contact and turn into a free first blood. That's not win condition for what he tries to do. It's definitely a factor, though, that does, again, pause 2Game Esports' tempo. But over the course of the last couple of days we've seen them play, they've stepped away from the match that they played versus All Knights, which was just all 5 of us are flooding at you. We'll just see who's better. This is more calculated. We're not getting the, I'm just going to use a fault line, Spike's going to slide through, see if we can get first blood. They're playing a little bit more reserved in the first 45 seconds and then using that burst later in the round because they know M80 is not going to force utility early. So it is a battle, like you mentioned, of all we're spending is a fault line. We'll get it back. Not the end of the world. It just slows down their eventual approach, but it comes at the benefit of them controlling the map the way that they want to keep M80 from being able to stack early because they do get picked early. So it definitely feels like a calculated assessment towards what went wrong last time and what's going right this time. As how about this? A little gut check call. It's immediately into market, and this is going to put a lot of stress on M80's defense to rotate over.
New sources used by M80 to try and control mid. So another completely fresh look thrown out by 2G that M80 have to react to on the fly.
Excuse me?
Was waiting for it. Okay, Neurothem's still going to be a factor. Both teams, in fact, have it. BCJ pinged out there intended TPing into line of sight. LZ holding the line. BCJ not expecting that, but still able to take the fight. Dizzy came in, he followed it after. We saw the dimensional drift there. Koalanu, he appears in B lobby and is able to take Silence out of the game.
Yeah, the dimensional drift is everything. I mean, Luis does his job. I mean, he gets completely isolated over towards market. He's able to find one elimination, then hold his ground a little while longer. But the problem was the dimensional drift pushed the entire play through B main all the way back almost to spawn. You just can't stay on site when market's under threat and you forget to clear a corner. So you can see it right here in the minimap. I mean, the dimensional drift pushes a player all the way deep over towards market. They can't even stay at all onto the site itself. So that's just an ultimate difference, again, coming through, plus an impressive quick shot out of Koalanu. Also beyond that, just good isolation to make sure they get market back, which is, again, one of the things that I was focusing on is can M80 make sure they keep themselves 2 points of ingress on these retakes instead of being forced to flood. That time it comes through by re-winning over towards market.
5 round wins in a row for 2G. Finally, that economy has run dry. It's time for the period of austerity, and Koalanu happy to punctuate that. LZ takes one to the guts as he tries to take control of mid. And you'll note that M80 not playing forward here, not trying to play off a fault line trap.
Yeah.
Doubled up here in halls.
And I think the thing here for 2G is there are tools to win this round if you get a couple of elims. But the problem here is for M80, you know, you don't want to find yourself culprit to being hit by a Rolling Thunder, which is why I think they're backing off. At worst, they could spend the Thrash. That's not the end of the world in terms of ultimate usage to secure a very needed round here. And more importantly, they may not even need it as BCJ just spams through the fast lane and finds one. So they may give up the plant, but this should be a round win for M80 as soon as everyone gets here.
Spike planted.
Thrash available for the retake if needed. It's likely M80 just look to fight this. They do send the Thrash team first. Sees two players in halls. Spike trying to take a fight over towards Lincoln. Somehow they're able to find two with this thing, but there's more work to do. Zap was caught by that. Clearly detained by the Thrash, and now Silence has to back away from this aftershock. Deepview should come in the meantime, and Silence has no choice but to face the guns. And BCJ with 2 on the round.
Yeah, good for BCJ. I think there may be some hindsight of did we need the Thrash or not, but regardless, the round is won, so we don't even have to go down that conversation, especially BCJ finding a follow-up plus the defuse. So not bad overall in terms of them being able to put themselves in position to kind of re-earn that Thrash before the end of this half again. But, you know, the thing about it is, as we go into this next round, this is going to be 2Game talking about what do we want to spend in terms of our ultimates. They don't have to give up on their early game plan of how they approach this. They can still play a little bit more disciplined, a little more calculated. You don't have to do something crazy off the get-go because you have a Hunter's Fury, you have a Rolling Thunder. Those can be your tools to counter out M80's successful retakes that they put together in the last, well, 2 of the last 3 rounds, we'll say. The pistol round is kind of whatever, but the 2 rounds before that with the Thrifty and then the full buy, those are the things that you're going to be talking about in this tactical of how do we make sure we get those completely successfully used, and then beyond that, if we need to make adjustments to call a tempo change, we can do that to finish off this half. But this should be all about talking about how do we guarantee our 6th round win with our full purchase coming back with the ultimates at hand.
M80 have already given over way too many of these defensive rounds than they would have liked. Last time they managed to stack 8 up on this D side, but they seem to have figured it out. They fell off that B side. They did respect the Rolling Thunder. They didn't have to worry about it in the end. They were willing to spend a Thrash even against an eco round just to ensure the victory. Every round worth a heck of a lot for M80 as they're chasing this total. And they're falling off the site. I mean, they're not giving it up at the start of the round. That's the difference. They are holding some of these double up angles over at A. And then when they find a timing, they decide, okay, now we can play back towards spawn, towards Link here. Yep. Force them to overextend into us.
Absolutely the case. And that's where I think you bring in the conversation of the ultimates that we have on hand. You know, for M80, they need to be very respectful of the fact that they need to decide here now, are we going to play aggressive, see if we can pull out something like a Hunter's Fury or Rolling Thunder early? Because if we don't, trying to deal with both of those and retaking with an operator is not going to feel good. So we'll see what they have in store as you're going to get quality once again is lurking up towards A long. Patience for 2G, not doing anything crazy. Maybe contact here with Luis, but I figure that neither player would overpeak this, but they do, and it's a huge punish. And all of a sudden, 2Game have the door wide open to try to hit A.
Cover going out. Molyneux just asking for a little too much. We've seen it happen before. And that operator looks tantalizing, I'm sure. But for 2G, what's even more exciting is the prospect of that player advantage.
Yes. Because this essentially just guarantees that Spike can be our entry man. He can just dive on in with high gear, slide on a corner. We don't need the op. You could deny it by tossing it a little further back if you want to, but they're not going to want it. They're going to want to try to play with aggression here, and they will get forward over towards this elbow area. So pressure on. I do like the fact that BCJ is sitting in sight. This is something different for M80. They will have good support from Nismo, who still has a flash, an aftershock, and a fault line.
Preemptive flash there from Nismo. Here comes the moves, the Rolling Thunder, but he's playing off the site here. Not too shabby, but Spikes is able to spray 2 down instantly. BCJ could have been an issue, embedded in the side, playing from the smoke, but prized him out. And now it's down to net. And that is basically the round right here, folks. Rolling Thunder may have caught onto BCJ on the side, but either way, M80 could not fight back in after losing Kuala.
And the great thing about that Rolling Thunder is it does hit BCJ. He doesn't position himself behind the box on it. He puts himself in the dark cover. It doesn't make a difference. He still gets isolated like you called on to Prize. But more importantly, that Rolling Thunder allows an opportunity to cut across the site, but not affect Spike as he dashes forward, follows up on the Rolling Thunder, and catches 2 players back of sight who are popped and concussed. So that's, again, just the pressure of using Spike not to just be the first thing forward, but get deep. Get a little bit of extra scaling on the backside side of the site. It's happened a couple of times in a row, that time to the benefit of a double. But before that, there were moments at B where he slides forward past the fault line, maybe doesn't find the first kill, but allows his teammate to get the trade. So it's good value out of the Neon here comparing it to a couple of days ago.
An overdrive available for Spike here in just a moment, although he seems to be doing plenty well with just the Phantom. Unreal spray control. More than happy just to pull up on M80 and go for broke. Round total already for 2G on this attack side. It bodes extremely well, folks. And we're jumping now into round number 10, where M80 still have plenty to work with weapon-wise. Ultimates are still a little ways away.
Yeah, absolutely the case. And a different look here. Koala gets aggressive through mid with support from BCJ. So this is, again, M80 changing up their defensive strategy just a touch to see if they can catch isolation early. Problem is you can't stay here. It's just there's too many variables for 2G. If they want to take space, they will get it. There's just so many utility abilities that they can use to freely clear. So it's going to have to just be shoulder checks. And as BCJ responds and says, yep, there is a threat at mid, he has to back off even deeper. And again, this is good map manipulation for 2G to eventually hit a little bit safer when they eventually decide what site they want to go to.
No scaling into mid, where M80 are allowing that to quite a great degree. Instead, they're trying to activate over towards B lobby. This will be crucial information, and it will probably eliminate B as an option, which of course means there's only one other. But 2G are going to be hitting it awfully quick. Recon thrown out here. And as soon as the trip is cleared onto the site, Cybercage is thrown up here, so not a ton of information about halls just yet, but Silence has got in there for 2G and probably has a feeling that it is safe. And Zap's there to cut off the rotate. That's big. Now 3 players for M80 called out the site have to contest with this one way to get in.
And they have to go through alley. They can't hit through mid anymore because of that pressure for Luis, who now finds himself on the site. It's just, this is clear cut, a night and day difference for what 2G was offering us on offense before. They're really taking to account that M80 want to try to full retake and save their utility for it. So you don't let them do that. You don't let them get their comfortable setup. You don't let them hit from multiple points at the same time. It's all going to have to be from one direction or the other. And 2G have done a really good job of just isolating the map and turning it into their offensive favor. The question will be, especially as we start to wrap up this first half, is what do they decide to do on the defensive side? Because again, they did win 8 from the defense, but there were moments in overtime where that faltered. It definitely felt like at moments 2G were bailed out by ultimates when they played this last weekend on the defensive side. So that's going to have to be a conversation as we start to run down this first half.
Such an odd position from LZ in that round. I mean, just on his side of the one-way smoke towards A-side spawn. Was able to catch out 2 players, pants down, and already it was a 5 versus 2. Yeah, Zap's always got something to say, folks. And this time, good reason to feel pretty upbeat. 7-3 here heading to the 11th round. And M80, this is disastrous compared to their last showing on defense against this very team recently. And that is a dirty recon in a fault line. Koala Noob again forced off an early line.
And again, it's not going to be the end of the world for him. He could just hold a different corner in the backside of the site. And I think the thing about it is 2G know that they've gained an angle, and he has to stay here. So we don't have to force this battle over towards Koala Noob. We could take it the other direction, knowing that there's no rotation available for Koala Noob as soon as the gate crash starts to fade. So no commitment yet in terms of them making a move towards one side or the other, but they're working on mid, where they know for a fact Koala Noob cannot be. So again, I just love the idea and the awareness that 2G are putting together in the mid round.
Got you. Again, BCJ is smoked off at top mid, so can't intervene here. Bike wants to make his way through. Overdrive still at the ready. His fault line catches out net. This means the cross into market is easy for 2G, and they can start to swarm the site properly. 3 players more up on the site now for 2G, and M80 once more need to find a way to extricate them. Market is smoked out. Kwanu has to hold this line entirely, and M80 going to try and use mid.
Silence should hear some of these footsteps. The doors closed. Fault line will land, though. Good isolation. Now M80 have 2 points of ingress. This is how the retakes often start.
Who coming around to Boba now, but there's going to be an overdrive facing both of them down. Care of Spike, and nobody rechecks mid. Pricey steps up yet again, and Spike's all too easy to connect these shots. Nismo and Net now, the last two standing. Net utterly overwhelmed, and Nismo doesn't hold up under the pressure either. That is an 8-round attacking half already.
Last round
for
in
2G.
the half.
It's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. They've put together the absolute best game plan they possibly could in terms of countering out what M80 do. We said it a lot in the Americas scene. This is one of the strongest teams on retake in North American Challengers. They showed that, I think, especially progressively throughout the group stage. In particular, they showed it versus this squad. But you have to give credit where credit is due. The coaching staff and the players alike who've talked over what they need to really execute on to make sure M80 do not feel comfortable in retakes has been perfect. I'm going to be really thrilled to see what the retake statistics are going to be, or the post-plant statistics, rather, are going to be for 2G, because right now it's been perfect except for one thrifty round.
M80 on a half buy. Move in the mid and take it over. LD there knows that there's some presence, probably pushed up pretty close. That M80 presence is about to now drift over towards market and probably expand a couple over towards Boba as well. So they are in retake positions, but those retakes have been far from gainful so far.
And this is great. I mean, this is another way that 2G can clear space. It's a little bit of a flex pickup with the operator in hand now. A couple of spam shots for Qualinoob, just a bit awry, but it does alert 2G that they're not as comfortable as they may think they are. And you saw the observers highlighting that trap wire. It did not get deleted by that opening shock dart. So this is still in play as they try to approach. These defenders are going to have to deal with the owl drone, which they don't even get revealed by fully.
I know.
Yeah, but you can see it again. Look at the other side of the map. Luis is already playing up and saying, there's no one here. Qualinoob's not here, so we can try to get aggressive towards A for free.
Yeah, it's almost like what we saw in the first round, in fact.
Absolutely.
Round 2 of the game. It was Silence who just walked up into elbow. Now that we're maybe have to hopefully quick enough for the punch here, it's going to be Net winning out narrowly a duel in mid. And that is huge. It's a huge boon. Take away that anti-retake util. No breach on the board here for 2G. And once more, we're converging. Spike hasn't gone down quite yet. Paranoid's going to interrupt its plant. Fault line doesn't stop the planter, though. And this is about to get messy. Silence deals with Net. Both players hit with Dizzy, though. And now Wingman is trying to open this up. Xander, what a time to come alive. And all. What? It's going to be Spikes for 3. Again, he decimates M80. And now it's up to Nismo. No chance of a rolling thunder here. It's the good old-fashioned honest Valorant to bail M80 out. That's good, but he takes a lot of damage. Spikes is also low and gets 4 on the round to send 2G into halftime with 9 attacking rounds.
That 3-piece is beyond mental. I mean, he's completely concussed up, and all of a sudden it's just, I'll just get a little high gear step. Yeet. I mean, what? That is filthy stuff from Spike. The desk hit on it. He needed to show up. And it hasn't been in the same mentality, the same effort that they pulled when they played M80 the last time. It's not just, I'm going to dive and see what I can create. Now it's playing off of the actual utility that comes through. And then while being concussed, Neon don't care. I mean, unbelievable individual skill from Spike to be able to go from the concussed state that he was to pop out, still find 2 headshots. Unbelievable. And a 9-3 half is a statement by 2G.
He ate most of that retake util from M80 over there at Link. There's even a Dizzy that came out beforehand. Yeah, Spike's on one today, and he's very, very hard to control when that happens. Unfortunate time for it to happen to a team like M80. Only 3 rounds on the defense side has got to her, and they've got to find us something special. They don't have the option to go for this Neon level of play. Gore is a bit more premeditated. He can come from angles that you don't expect, but he cannot slide up on you and just get you. There has to be a different approach here for M80, and one that secures them a heck of a lot of rounds, but we need to be thinking about the pistol first and foremost. A loss there means that M80 essentially will force for the game.
Yeah, that is a really strong point. Now, to be fair, you look at kind of the results that these two teams have had when it comes to the pistol overall, and M80 has been just as good as anybody else. In fact, they've actually been just about as better than everybody else. They sit second behind Galeris in terms of overall pistol round win percentage. So, their setups and their strategies around the first 3 rounds of a half have been solid. They're also one of the best teams at playing at an eco disadvantage as well. So, you talk about the thrifty round from the first round. They've also been a benefit of a couple of anti-eco round wins, even when they're on pistols. So there are opportunities in the first 3, but you're absolutely right. Coming out, winning this opening pistol, taking the anti-eco, puts this game well back into grips. The only issue is 2G defensively were great when they played last. That's going to be something that they need to keep in mind. And in particular, it's got to be about the game plan of how do we deal with Silence. He was a monster in the second half when they played last time.
The Yoru pick was something, as Xander said, was allowing M80 to do things that other teams couldn't. But honestly, a lot of teams have gotten slapped by 2G. So that hasn't quite held so far. Can they get value out of that Ancient selection here on this attack side? As map can definitely skew attack-sided. It's going to be Net, though, get absolutely pounded by Spikes, who is picking up where he left off now, 16 and 8.
And I like this. There's no need to go back to site. You can just take B main, possibility to over-enforce what happens at market, and then retake that direction if you want to. There's a lot of options on the floor here for 2G, but the time is going to be against him as M80 gets a quick replant 4v5.
Well, move here. A lot of players waiting at the points of ingress. Barnoob actually checked top mid briefly and is able to get the drop on Zap, but here comes the pressure through market. Nismo gets one. That might be enough. Healthy as he is, still need to deal with this pinch that's coming in. He gets his one. That's going to have to be enough. Xander with a quiet game today. And that continues as Spike finds 3 on the pistol, and 2G will not be stopped.
I mean, Spike sliding down the stairs. It's speed, it's elevation change. Neon is disgusting in the right hands. Holy cow. It's just, you can even see it. There's like the tracking just isn't there. You just don't expect someone to slide out and be that fast. It's unbelievable. So good stuff again by 2G. This is something we saw them do versus All Knights, where they're kind of in the same form of, we want to make sure that we've got multiple points of ingress available on our retakes, and they do so by opening up space with all 5 players hitting it and then resetting to hit multiple points at the same time once they have numbers. So that time it's an isolation at market. Once they get market back, then you've got to flood over through Boba and market at the same time. So it takes a little bit more time, but it's just as easily effective. And how about this? Spikes is doing Spikes thing, just dives out, paranoid to follow. That's a 2 for 1.
He was blinded. Bro,
he don't care.
Clearly the walls have eyes, and they belong to Spikes as well, because he sees it all coming. M80 here, not the start that we're looking for. That gun is not recoverable. 2G going to be grouped up around this. They've at least dealt with defending Neon. Is that enough? There's plenty of depth in this squad. Step up where Spike departs, and that's 3 on the round for LZ. This is getting very scary for M80.
Yes. Yeah, very much so the case. This is a must-win round coming up, and then a must-win round after that. Just to kind of keep yourselves in some sort of an economical foothold. So not the ideal start here, but Spike is playing out of his mind. I mean, we could sit here and we could break down the macro game in terms of what adjustments that 2G have made over the course of the last 3 days. And to be fair, they've been significantly strong. But Spike is just also playing well, which helps a ton in terms of this composition finding value. I mean, 5 and 14 in offensive rounds last time they met. That's not good. Now all of a sudden he's finding himself near the top of the overall leaderboard and the server. And that doesn't seem to be stopping anytime soon. Silence is going to hear all this information, try to translate what he can, and then once again, watch how this retake happens. It's not going to be from one side or the other, it'll be by 2 sides at once.
That crash is there by Kawanubi, got spotted on the site. Would have been an easy target for Silence had he not extracted himself. So full post-plant setup here with no market presence to speak of for M80. And weapons that would make the devil look away in disgust.
Careful. This is a great dark cover. They can follow up with a flashpoint or paranoia. Now they can flood together. That's exactly what's happening. The slide through. Spike's denied. No, Qual gets 2 somehow.
Beautiful. They run straight into M80. 2G don't really have a protocol nailed down to try and clear through this. Stab gets good damage, but will be caught by the heal as he tries to get out. M80 with a quick plant sneak themselves around.
That's value too in terms of what they spent and versus what they got. I think impressively, and we didn't see it because it happened to blink an eye. Quality somehow gets 2 while all of this action is coming by way of flash and paranoia and dark cover to separate. It looked like 2G was going to hold an advantage with the weapons and the ability to push with utility favoring them in the fight. It just doesn't happen because Noob, stinger in hand, somehow gets 2. So great stuff there for M80, provides a bit of a lifeline, but there is a lot of work to be done here, and they still have yet to even execute on their playbook just because the pistol, the anti-eco, and a bonus round have come through, and they've already been battered a little bit in terms of Spike finding value. So there's going to be some interesting things to kind of evaluate immediately if you're M80. Whatever the playbook is, better find success. Otherwise, you're going to go straight to attack pause and have to readjust based on a limited amount of information that you found, just because the sample size of full-on defensive rounds will be 1 or 2 at that point.
In the crowd already, the 9-3 curse has been invoked. Great to see some M80 fans in the venue. The 11-3 curse also being invoked. I don't know if we're going to see a Fnatic-esque bounce back in a game like this. For M80, though, the rest of the map pool looking pretty favorable to the maps that they have been so good on. This one included. This one has been, 50-50 for them. Definitely their closest matches have been played on it, with Icebox and Haven remaining in the series. That is something to hang your hat on. That is something to look forward to, even as this first map goes badly. Now that I've detached the Cope tank, 2Game look like a completely different team today. We've seen this, though, throughout Ascension, just not against M80. They got pretty manhandled by them. It was a very close game on Sunset in the end, but the rest of the series, that Lotus game really didn't exactly spark joy or confidence in this team. But this is the time to peak, to come alive. Get yourself into an Apple final. That would really take a lot of weight off your shoulders.
And I think the thing about it is, you know, for M80 offensively, it has been their stronger side. So again, I'll hook the tank back up real quick. There is that. The issue has been in the rounds and games that they've won that have been tight. A lot of it has been because they've beat their normal metrics on defense. You know, looking back, they had a 13-8 win versus TSM. 9 of those rounds were defense. Their follow-up, 8 of the rounds on defense were versus 2Game when they played just a couple of days ago. Their offensive side has been successful for them, but when they win this map, it's because their defense does better than expected. So that was not met. Now it has to be a blinding attack versus a 2Game squad that showed good presence on defense across a multitude of different games that they've played on this map. Again, that being their pick interregionally, they were great on it. So far through the group stage, they've been pretty darn solid on it as well, save just the matchup they had versus M80 and TSM, the 2 North American representatives here. But it's just one of those things that you just don't feel good about how that first half went. And now you have to sit and stew after losing a pistol and an anti-eco of how do we play perfect offense against a team that's showed us that they play very good defense.
And M80 getting absolutely trash when it comes to these first kill, first death situations. Xander, someone who we've seen highlights of him just taking 2, 3, 4Ks as he anchors sites. That's one of our favorite times to see him. He's been getting absolutely rolled. Koala Noob is, well, frankly, I mean, we could talk about the defense side. Couldn't do too much with that operator. So you hope that he moves on to the attack side and can have some more value. So far, not so much.
Well, I think the good news here, and where you find kind of, we'll call it free rounds, is one M80 have a dimensional drift to play with. There's just not a lot of answers in the game on this map for what you do to deal with that. And that's something that I'm sure 2Game have discussed because, honestly speaking, when they were on the defense and they dropped rounds, it was because the dimensional drift and rolling thunder were available for the side of M80. So I'm sure they talked about it. But, when you swap sides after a convincing first half and you're going to your stronger side where you only have 1, maybe 2 things to kind of kumbaya and talk about after the last time you played the map, you're feeling pretty confident in your ability to close this map out. So, again, there's a lot of pressure here on the M80 to try to find ways beyond just the dimensional drift and the rolling thunder to actually get good success. And I'm actually kind of looking towards the get-go here. Can you provide enough space clearance for the wingman to get an early plant? And then can you possibly largely hold off of your initiators playing through some things like B main? Yeah, that's just playing off the post plant through B main. That seems like the best option, especially considering that 2Game defensively are so good at re-clearing market.
Well, we saw that, right? We saw that M80 had to play the post plant entirely from A main, which is fine, right?
Sure.
There is forms of util that can clear them. Aftershock's very powerful. Also, we see some teams actually smoke not sort of main, but the left-hand side of that kiosk can sort of cut off one side and filter in that way. You have obviously, some of that util available to you in order to break this, but 2Game can also circumvent this whole process by playing a bit further forward up on the sides. That obviously is a more of a risk-laden style of play, but trying to deny a post-plant situation is actually something that M80 might have wanted to consider themselves because on their defense side, their post-plant, I mean, we'll see the stats at the end of the game, but their post-plant success rate was extremely low. If they let Spike just, inhabit a site and press up on you off of your util timing, even while he's still flashed or stunned or passed out or unconscious or sleeping or in a different postcode or he's not in the sacred timeline and he's still fragging you. There are that is very difficult to deal with. There's a lot of variables that you introduce when you want to play that post plant. And M80 tried to play ahead of this, right? Sent Koala Noob. He wanted to play ahead of it so much that he just walked into a line that was being held by a Vandal and lost his operator at the start of one of those rounds. So
sure.
M80 tried to avert that post plant scenario. They've got good retake util, so it's not like they have to do that, but neither plan seemed to work for them.
And I think the thing about it for M80 is they don't have to force that same level of scaling that we saw from 2Game on their offensive side. I think at certain rates when you get kind of bullied out of positions like market or over towards like A elbow, for instance, if you were to throw the hypothetical out there, if they were to have a post plant set up at A, I just don't feel like you need to go an extra step because you have things like the Gecko and the Sova still behind you, on top of obviously having usually a Breach who's still alive, because often speaking, it's going to be Koala Noob, the first one in, first one out. So I feel like if you're M80, you should understand that and not just necessarily rely on the entry, but start to kind of lean a little bit towards these lockdown controller agents, and in particular, I think just the initiators that can hold on to utility and regain utility to stave off a retake and then retake the fight on your own terms rather than trying to force it initially and seeing if you catch good Valorant timing. So those are the things to keep an eye on. Tech pause, we're hearing, should be resolved here in a moment here, friends. So stick with us in our little vamping of the podcast. But the end all be all, and what I'm kind of looking at broad strokes, is that M80 have a lot of things to think about. And at the moment, 2-game, don't. You just stay alive to dimensional drift. Those are the only rounds that caused you problems last time. Trust the process from there on out. Win the map, go next.
Now, on this technical pause, with an ETA of 2 minutes, about 2 minutes ago. So it shouldn't be too long from jumping back in. And yeah, I think if the extended yapping is not your style, folks, I suggest you put some ASMR on and just cry silently while you mute the stream. Because again, there's a lot to talk about in this game. I mean, we've discussed pretty, I think, extensively like M80 woes on that defense side. 2-game, you'll notice it won't often look to relegate themselves to post plant if they can avoid it. And we're able to, and if they do, they can definitely play through from mid and
Sure.
from Boba. And like
Sure.
if M80 are not, if they're all pulling off the site playing as 5, if they have had Boba re-cleared away from them, that is definitely harder to play that
Yes.
post plant as an attacking side, but not impossible as we saw.
And the other thing about mid, which I think for M80 may not feel as enticing as what we saw from 2-game on offense, is the fact that Spike can just run up and clear it with high gear. You know, you throw him a smoke to block off one side of mid or one side of market, and Spike can just run and dive, and someone can be behind him. That's how you clear. You don't have to spend a lot of utility to get isolation of those particular areas. So I think if you're M80, it just doesn't feel maybe resource value worth it to spend a lot to have it be countered with so little. And that's why I think you're seeing them really stack a lot of their abilities and utility towards, when we're on defense, retaking from one side or the other. Or here on offense, it's going to be to get initial entry and then to try to hold off a retake from one particular area. Try to find value based on concentration rather than by trying to split the map and forcing 2-game to spend a lot to get a little. That's the power of Neon, is that they can just throw up a fast line or throw a relay bolt and just dive through it. And that's clearance. You know, at least gives you a 2v1 situation at worst, if not a 1v1 that Spike has won pretty much the entirety of the day. So there's a lot of things, I think, in terms of what they could possibly do to get clearance. And that's why I think for M80, you got to still stay with this more stacked mindset. And hopefully you find yourselves in 5v3s or 5v4s early to put a little bit of extra pressure on 2-game.
All right, well, those of you in chat with TikTok attention spans, your wishes have been granted. We're going to go to a quick break, step aside, let you soak in the ambience for a little bit, and we'll return once we can jump back into game. It's the first map of the series between 2-game and M80. Sunset is 11-4, favoring Brazil's number 2 seed. We've got some gameplay for you, folks. Jumping in round 16. It'll be M80 still trying to string some of these crucial attacking rounds together after losing both pistols in this map.
And this is going to, interestingly enough, because of the way that they purchased, this is going to feel almost like a bonus for M80. Outlaw and play, though, for Zap, so keep your eye on that. That thing's going to hit hard, especially with only a couple of light armors.
Oh, you're kidding me! No! Turn it off! Take the tech pause set! No! No tech port! No! No! All right, that's it. Where's my keys? I'm going to Monterey. I'm going to talk to these guys. I'm going to show them where to plug in the thing, and we're going to be good. And I'll be right back, chat.
Oh, no. Uber, help me. Hold me.
This one goes out to people who didn't want us discussing the game in the tech pause. There you go. You get a little bit of our feelings. My car is running. I'll be out there. One more tech pause from you moderate people, and you're cooked.
I like that about you. This is the energy that we need. Just someone to step up and get it done.
This is the I have worked in this industry for too long energy. Back we are. Step the line here over towards Tiles. This could get a little nasty. Dizzy won't blind him if he's thrown out too far, so... Oh, yes, the timing's good. Nismo, obviously not fully armored, takes an L.
Oh, and Zap is aware that this is going to be the next move. If he gets a second, this round might just be over. Not going to happen. And now all of a sudden you've got a threat through mid. It's going to make complete some rotation. Difficult with the overdrive earned so early. Has Spike already taken down 1 plus damage on the BCJ? Trouble here for M80 because Spike is still in the way. Paranoia out, but countered by Relay Bolt. That's enough to hold the line.
Fast lane as well, by a bit of time. Occludes some vision from M80, but they seem confident in committing to this A push. And have also got contingency as well to catch the wrap from behind. Of course, the fault line, I'd rather tripwire left in their wake. Here comes Thrash. He's going to see absolutely sweet Fanny Adams here. Nobody over at the site for 2G. They are trending back after hearing this, though. And Spike's in a position to deal some death with this outlaw.
30 seconds left.
It's an outlaw and a Marshall here. That's the thing. This is not what you want for retake. So Silence is going to have to go old school musketman riflery here to try to take this down 1v3.
For Silence. Especially peering in him with a scope weapon. All right, another Thrash. Another fallback from Silence, but now he's running out of time. He's going to have to commit here. All right, well, not quite the connection he was looking for there. Net going to be able to finish him up, and M80 have strung a couple of rounds together. There is a glimmer of hope here, but they're looking ragged even after that one.
Well, keep in mind that that was essentially a bonus for them, right? Because the purchase that they pulled in round 3 was not as significant as you would have guessed because of the force buys behind it. So, yeah, there's going to be a couple of players that may have some financial difficulties, but largely speaking, this should be a full rifle purchase coming for M80. It will be the same thing, obviously, on the opposite end as well. So this is going to be a really crucial round in trying to gain some momentum and turn this map back into M80's favor. Otherwise, obviously, if you win this one, you put yourself on map point if you're 2G with a lot of ultimates still ready to cook up. So must-win round here for the side of M80. 2 Bulldogs, everyone else on Vandals.
Straight in immediate Kwanu. Can't catch him in a different dimension with the fault line. He pulls on out, though. It's going to be that full beat hit, but the dimensional drift essentially clears market for the time being. It's going to be a while before 2G can get there and have to spend util to re-clear it. I think they'll just take the fight, but this time Net's going to be ready for it. It is a 5-gun salute. M80 stand their ground here. Silence is able to trend left and find one. M80 having to slow it down for now.
Good follow-up from Silence. This forces a repurchase, but this is going to be a save for the last 2. Interesting idea there from 2G. And again, I think this is their conversations around the dimensional drift. I don't think they often expect the dimensional drift to get popped out of and then gate crashed back to. I think 2G were figuring that at least Koala Noob plus 1 more were still in market. So they try to throw the smoke towards B main, and then they try to flash out and use Spike to clear the backside of sight to then eventually re-wrap and use market as kind of an isolated tool where, again, that post plant would be less effective for players in market because of where the spike was planted, but not the case. 2G guessing correctly. M80 kind of win the little mind chess game right there and put themselves in a position to try to string together a couple more rounds.
We talked about how this comp for M80 on the attack side can do some really interesting things. And you mentioned it, Kwanu, telegraphing that he was himself in market, which is either saying to 2G, you either avoid this part of the map or you spend all your util to clear it. Util that you could be using on the site itself. That's very good. That is map control, even if it's not an actual physical body occupying it. Let's see what else M80 have up their sleeves here.
I got the spike.
And Rolling Thunder is 1 away. Spike in the corner, dealt with. Koala Noob gets a freebie. And that's just going to put so much existential pressure onto 2G's defense. In fact, it's even going to force Luis to try to catch timing here, and he's going to get overwhelmed, and this should be a free round right here from the side of M80.
Yeah, maybe some of these early pushes up for 2G. They're getting a little bit antsy about their lack of information. Trapwire obviously confirmed. Here come M80. Silence able to find 3 with the Sheriff. And Pricey gets involved as well. Absolute filth. 2 for Pricey, 3 for Silence. And M80 in absolute shambles.
Dude, it's just, as soon as you take your attention away from Spike, Silence steps up. He did this versus All Knights. Sheriff in hand. 4 shots, 3 kills. Are we joking? Like, there's no world that he should have been able to pull this last one off in particular, but just clicking heads. Silence is legitimately one of the saving graces of this 2G team. It happened versus All Knights on this map, and all you can do is sit there and say, I don't know, I'm just out here clicking, boys. Impressive three-piece, and that changes the whole dynamic of this map now, all of a sudden, putting them on map point.
Man, you have to pause for a moment when they come out of B main because the trap wire is in play. They know it because they checked it with a clone.
Yeah.
And that just causes them to stand around for a bunch and not end up taking the fight into the backside, which was where they were needed. And now they put 2Game on map point. Yeah. Now they put themselves in a position where at best they secure overtime here on Sunset. That's not good enough.
And the thing about it is, like, if you're M80, you're just like, I guess we just tipped that. Like, we flashed him, we neural thefted him, we had smoke deep. Like, he was as isolated as it gets. It's just 3 players don't swing it together, and it's just impressive shots. Like, there's just one of those things of Happy is sitting there like, well, we got beat. It's just like, I don't really know what else to say. The only thing you could have possibly done better for M80 is just swing that together, since I knew exactly where he was. But I don't know. I just don't know. That's just different. That's all you can say right there. That's just flat out different.
And that might have been Zap talking about some of their retake strategy there. Basically, you come from the left, I come from the right, and we turn them into mincemeat. 1 round away for 2G. What a way to break momentum here. For the most part, it's a full buy. It's just Zap on light armor. And LZ will be caught here. Koala really tried to play forward off of this now. Hey, Dizzy as well. LZ gets back inside the dark cover, and here comes Silas to step up yet again. Clone hit first, so Koala Noob's happy to let that take the hit, and then he dishes one out. Now the player advantage at all of 2G. 3 players were at A. Have to make the pilgrimage back to market.
Well, Luis has done well to get up top here. He will obviously be able to separate Koala Noob. It'll be unbeknownst to him immediately, but he does at least get the information on if there were players to be crossing. So now here comes the ISO. Dark cover down over towards B main again. This should be a little bit of a slide through play for Spike, try to see if there's anyone on site, and then the focus should go immediately back over towards main. But keep in mind, Xander's on a long lurk. This could be super beneficial for M80.
Yeah, but market door's closed, so Xander can't go into there for a backstab. He would have liked to. Instead, he'll pinch from Boba. He may not even be needed. There's nothing you can do about this. 2G are about to get absolutely slammed. Yep, Zap won't see Xander coming, and Koala Noob takes his 3rd of the round. Here comes the Yoru play, and here come M80 trying to take this to OT.
The other side of this is not just the fact that Koala Noob's finding value, opening up space, but Xander finding success on the lurk is going to put a lot of mind games into play if he can continue to get around the back, whether it be through middle or just rotating around the world from the opposite site. Whether he gets into market or not doesn't make much of a difference. It's just the simple fact that, like we talked about, M80 are likely going to default to on post plant stacking, likely in towards B main. So if you can keep finding success with late lurks around the back, it just makes that post plant setup that much more confident that you can just keep sitting back, wait for help, know that you've got a natural pinch. Dart will come through, fault lines to exchange, but early battle still ongoing through A main.
They throw the fault line from mid there, so there was a trap play, but the timing's not really there. M80 actually going to stagger themselves a little bit. Okay, prizing an opening. Spikes, though, can't capitalize off that player picked off. No trade here for the defenders. Weaponry a little bit dodgy. Silence, the only player with a Vandal in hand, and he is on the other side of the map. He won't be able to play off this at all. So it ends up being a 1-for-1 because Spikes is incredible and still is able to find the kill. One shot here for Zap could take the wind out of M80's sails, but they don't give it to him.
And the thing about it is one tap can win the game here for 2G. Not only would that be a 3v3, but you have the ability to pop a Rolling Thunder if you want to. So definitely concerning moments here for M80. They have the Thrash and the Dimensional Drift. I would not be surprised if they use one, if not both of them, just to guarantee this round and extend the map.
I'll handle this.
Dimensional Drift and a gate crash position for Koala Noob to fall back to. Now we check the site. No one's embedded a box. Theoretically, they'll be stacked up towards spawn, and Koala Noob sees everything he needs to. Now, they don't have Xander for one-ways here. They do not have their Omen, do M80.
Planted.
Have to get it done without him. Nismo takes the hit there, and here comes the Thrash. Heading over towards Link here, and Net wants to push ahead. He gets the better of LZ. That is a big one.
Yep.
Still a Vandal in play for 2G, but not much else.
Yeah, this is really good discipline from M80. Good decision-making as well. You know, you get the read from the Dimensional Drift of where the defense is playing over towards this backside at Alley, and then you use the Thrash to affirm that Koala Noob can stay at mid. If they lose him, then all of a sudden that post plant becomes a little bit dodgy because you have to be essentially defaulted to playing off of elbow. But it's a good decision to use the Thrash. It's an expensive round. Let's not get it twisted. That's an expensive round for M80, but you're willing to pay the price to keep the map going. So it works out, but well done by 2Game in the first place to catch a couple of 1-for-1s. Maybe some that you would figure are likely impossible. Like you said, Spike gets one while being blinded up by the Dizzy. That's incredibly well done to make sure the numbers stay limited, and it forces M80 to use a couple of the key ultimates. So again, the eco game, the macro game, continues to still shift a touch. M80 will have full purchase, but 2Game get the benefit of pulling out a couple of the key ults.
Happy to spend it on a round like that. Those are trap rounds. In fact, any of them can be, considering M80 just got thriftied into the 24th and a half dimension a couple of rounds ago.
Sure.
Can't afford to take any obviously can't afford to take any risks here. That would be the game. And again, they can't really afford to get off to a bad start in any of these rounds. Of course, for the most part, money's not a problem for them. They can force up, buy up for the rest of the game if it does persist. So it's really about making sure their execution is good. Let's see what the plan is here. Maybe a variation now as we've had a chance for 2G to try and reset.
And I think the thing for 2G is, conversationally, we just had our first look at kind of an opening battle towards A main with utility being exchanged on both sides. Spike trying to get aggressive, doesn't really fully work out. Is there more to be learned about what that looks like? Not going to happen. Likely some sort of a recon bolt slide out combo here at B to get some control at B main immediately. And there it is, recon bolt fault line. B main is completely taken. And like you said, the ultimate advantage is just so steep for 2G. They've got so many bailout tools, and M80 are going to realize that. So they have to play over through mid and see if they can try to pull something out before they actually execute.
This is new. We have not seen this little variation for M80 before, but 2G are
wow, they're
absolutely ready for it. Yeah, but they don't actually have to breach the playoff we've got on the other side of LZ's paranoia.
Portal closed.
M80's seen enough.
Yep. All it takes is a shoulder. I mean, as long as no one's committed on that passer, you don't have to spend the paranoia. So, good usage. B main is going to, again, just not be even a consideration for M80. So this is going to have to be a full 5-man hit over towards A with Net watching the long flank off his spy cam and trapwire setup. So some moments of kind of caution here for 2G. Ooh. Not 100% confident this is going to be a hit towards A. And Silence is going to get called upon again. What can he find as he's about to get overwhelmed?
You think he has to play off these trips? I saw him push up there and I wondered why, but he has so much of this Cypher util in place already. Trip not revealed. Okay, going to be clear quickly for VCJ, but he's got to get down the wall. Quick wingman plant. They plant very shallow here.
Yep.
Shift.
It's a great place. It's enough to avoid things like the Hunter's Fury and the Rolling Thunder. They can play super deep off of this. This is a really good call. Now it's just down to 2G. What do they want to use first? Try to break back into the site.
Waiting for Spike. Spike's now here. Rolling Thunder going to be used. Now M80 you're going to have the hot foot. Dizzy thrown out. Wingman also deployed there. And they are embedded in the site. Here they come. He's able to take one of the way down, but Spice comes in from the off angle and they're not waiting for it. They get it, Spice. And the wheels fall off. The comeback fan for M80. 2G close it out, 13-8.
Brilliant map from 2G.
Oh, they're good. They're good.
I'll say, that felt more like the 2G squad we saw in the first 2 days of group play. And not just because the execution was there, not just because the individual prowess from Silence and Spike were there, but I think in particular, that was a team that came out with a great game plan, great counter strategy based on what they faced last time they played M80, and it worked out essentially perfectly. A couple of rounds here or there that they're going to look back on down the road and say, okay, let's just not make this mistake. But in terms of their scheme, absolutely perfect follow-up after the recent result that they had. It's hard to beat a team twice, and that's exactly what 2G is able to prove here in this first match.
By the time M80 started to build some momentum, it was already too late. That thrifty that took 2G to map point was too much for them to handle. Pretty insane. Map number 1 here coming up. We've got much more. This is a best of 3 in this upper semi-final, so don't go too far. We'll be right back with more VCT Ascension Americas.